Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Ride Mechanic channel. How the heck are you doing today? I'm between vacations, literally. One day is all I got. And I was just contacted with an email by a person, and I've got a ride accident to look into real quick. So let's get into it.
Now get ready. Here we go.
Okay, we'll get right into this one today. This is a ride accident regarding a waltzer out there in Scotland, of all places. The video comes to us from Wester Hailes, not quite sure how to say that name. This is located just outside of Edinburgh, and the ride is called, I believe it's just Waltzer. I believe that's the name of the ride. That's also the trade name of the ride. It's operated by Galactic Carnival. Let's take a look at this video real quick. Wow. Now, there were 3 kids on that one, ages 7, 12, and 13. And actually, they were the ones obviously recording on that when the ride basically came apart mid-cycle. It's really scary. I'm glad they weren't hurt. That's the best thing. I mean, they were really shooken up. It could have been a lot worse. But the cab actually came off and actually went out and hit a set of really big speakers off to the side of the thing. So glad no one was hurt there, because that could have ended up really bad, especially if they had turned over and possibly flung somebody out. It would have been a really bad thing. And the operator, Galactic Carnival, did the right move. They closed the ride down and actually closed the carnival down for the rest, indefinitely. So the HSE can come in there and do their inspections, which is really good. It's always great to see. It's unfortunate when accidents happen, but it's good to see when the operator allows the health and safety, the HSE, to come in and do their investigation and figure out what happened. One of the biggest red flags you could have of any event anywhere, I don't care what it is when it happens, is when there's an accident happens and then they don't let people come in and do an investigation right off the bat. It's like, that's typically because you're trying to cover something up. Now, I don't know. The person who sent me the article said that there was some actual miscooperation at first, that they didn't immediately let them in, but other news articles say, yeah, they shut it down, shut the whole thing down, shut the carnival down, cleared it out. If you had tickets for it, the tickets will be valid on other days, but the HSE is in there right now doing an investigation, because this happened today, it looks like. It happened actually just a handful of hours ago. Not sure when I'll have this video edited and put out. I'm hoping this evening, because I'm gone tomorrow. Let's look at a couple of pictures that came out right afterwards. But before I get to that, the Waltzer is a very common fair style ride, and there's hundreds of models out there that are made by so many different manufacturers. So I can't really pin down the manufacturer of this one, but there's a lot of different manufacturers out there. So let's look at some of these pictures. Okay, so the first picture we're looking at is where the car was sitting on the ride. As you can see, these rides right here, it sits on this, and the way it is, the nose where your feet are in that video, that nose basically sits right on this center spindle right here. And then underneath the chairs in the background, it's got a set of wheels that sit side to side. So as the ride rotates around and the arms undulate up and down, you get a free spinning, swirling motion out of it. Now, we've seen spinner type rides before where that center spindle, which is right here in the middle of the picture, where that center spindle has come apart and sheared at that base level, and then the car came off. Luckily, on most of those, they're like teacup style rides, and there's not much to them. This was a little bit more, but if we look at this a little bit closer, sorry, it's grainy image here. When I zoom in a lot, it's grainy, so I apologize for that. Not much I can do. So there's a center spindle, and you can see there's 3 parts to it. There's the lower part, the base, which is actually the cone bearing. The cone bearing is still sitting on there, which is typically what you do with these things. It's got a seal right underneath it, more than likely. There's the cone bearing. This middle section right here, that middle section is the actual spindle itself. And then it's got a step on the top where it reduces down and it goes up to a threaded, like a rod end sticking out. I believe those are probably one piece. They're not two pieces, but threads are sticking up right there. So it looks like all that stuff is intact, which means here's the next picture, unfortunately. So the way that works out is that you take those cars and you set them down on top of the spindle. Inside the car, it's got another bearing that sits in there, another cone bearing that sits down. So you have the two cone bearings sandwiched inside the frame. And then on top of that cone bearing, you have a plate that retains the whole assembly and keeps it down, which is that guy right there. That's the plate that retains the whole assembly. And on top of that, you have a castle nut. A castle nut that gets tightened down on top, maybe backed off just a hair to keep the bearing tolerance loose. And then you put a cotter pin through that in those castellations and those slots that are on top of that nut. You put a cotter pin right through there. So this looks like, honestly, it looks like there was no cotter pin in there. I can't be certain. Again, it's so pixelated. The image isn't really high quality. I can't be certain for sure. And again, this is all speculation. The HSE is doing their investigation. Never want to do anything outside or point fingers because there's just so many unknowns when it comes to ride accidents. All we can say for sure is it doesn't look like anybody was hurt. That's a good thing. And no one got worse than hurt too, if you know what I mean. That's a horrible thing. Nobody in the industry wants that. But it looks like these castellations, which are right here, where you see like straight across there, there's actually 3 sets you can do. There's one there, there's another one across there, another one across there. So where those castellations are, sometimes you might see something like there's evidence of that plate was rotating. For instance, the bearing might have been seized up underneath, and instead of just freely rotating underneath that plate, which is right here, instead of freely rotating underneath that, it might have been pushing on it and forcing rotation, in which case on the top of this plate right here, assuming that is the top, I'm not 100% sure, that might be the bottom of it, but you would see lots of metalworking signs, lots of shiny metal where it's been really digging into it and turning it. When you transfer force like that onto those things, your worst case scenario is that the force is transferred into that castle nut at the same time, and then that castle nut sits there and does this right on the cotter pin, and it sits there and does this number on the cotter pin until eventually it breaks off one side of the cotter pin, and then it's just a matter of time before it breaks the other one and the whole thing can back off. Grainy pictures, not the best stuff. It doesn't look like that. It doesn't look like we were doing movement and breaking things in place. It looks like it was bearings were worked on, or when it was assembled. I'm not sure which one. I believe those are taken off to transport. So when they assembled it, it looks like the nut was probably run down and they forgot to put the cotter pin in it. It's just speculation. There's nothing more than speculation here. But just looking at the components that are left and the components that's left on the ride, i.e. this guy right here, it looks like everything is still in good condition. And when you have something that's in good condition left over all over the place like that, it's typically just means that it wasn't put together right and the thing came apart, which is what you get. These guys rotate. All they do is they rotate counterclockwise because they can go either way. And then every time it rotates counterclockwise, that bearing has a little bit of upward momentum, and eventually that plate will just start to walk that nut off of there. Now, you would hope at the end of the day, before the next day, they would check that nut and be like, oh my gosh, it's backed all the way off. Run it back down and put a cotter pin in it, and then say, what the heck happened? Double check the rest of them. It fell apart midday, unfortunately. So I guarantee you right now that the HSE is out there, and the first thing that they're doing is they're checking all those other ones. And they're going to make sure all the cotter pins are installed in the other ones. And then they're going to look into the paperwork and figure out who put this together, using what, and they're going to talk with that person. Standard investigation stuff. the tub that came off actually came out to the side. I'm not sure if this is the exact speaker, but it said it hit a pair of very heavy speakers, which kind of cushioned the blow and was able to dissipate some of the energy. So anytime you can get rid of that energy coming off of a ride, that's a good thing. Those kids are really scared in that video. I think about my own kids going out there. Again, this is one of the reasons why, unfortunately, carnivals get traveling fairs, I should say, they get a bad rap for stuff like this, because this stuff comes out and happens, and then it shakes everyone's faith. If something wasn't assembled right, because even for carnival rides, people can really get behind, like, the thing just broke in half and the thing came flying off, because then you go into NDT records and service bulletins and all that other stuff and really start digging into it, like, okay, what's happened? When something just wasn't put together right and came apart, that's when the entire industry, outside of fairs, it goes all the way into permanent amusement parks, the entire industry gets a black eye. We all hate it. It's like, this is not something we want to turn the TV on and see. But they'll do an investigation and figure out what happened, and I'm sure at some point it'll come out. I know the next question is like, hey, whatever happened back in December to that Starflyer that crashed at Birmingham? I don't know. I don't know what happened with that one either. HSE is also, or HSC, I think. I'm not sure if those two are different, if it's C or E for both of them. Someone let me know. But the I thought it was C. HSC. No, I guess it is Health and Safety Executor? I don't know. Anyways, they're still doing their investigation as of right now. I've had several news agencies contact me and say, the video I put up on here, they're like, where'd you get it? Where'd it come from? Because they wanted to talk with people. But I'm like, I don't know. I don't know this stuff. But anyways, I just wanted to do a quick video out there. No one was hurt. That's a good thing. Hopefully this operator gets that stuff squared away and they can lower it down to a single pinpoint event, and hopefully the operator is not, by operator I mean hopefully not the Galactic Carnival is a piece of crap operator. We don't know anything about that yet. So that will come out in the end, but this looks like they simply just didn't put a cotter pin in a nut and the car came off. Bad news, but there it is. All right. If you haven't already, like, subscribe. I do stuff like this all the time. Let me know if you see stuff out there like, hey, I saw this thing. It might be interesting, especially if something comes apart. Sometimes I could do a quick video like this. Sometimes I can't. I'm 3 or 4 days late afterwards with it, but I'll do what I can when I can. All right, that's going to do it for this video. You can always contact me, RyanTheRideMechanic@yahoo.com, or you can just message me down below in there. I'm also on Instagram, and I'm also on TikTok, although I don't honestly do much with those. Anyways, stay off the air gates.